Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. My pad here is a bit of a mess, but the show must go on. Right, so here we are gonna finally talk about Mystic class and the champions in the Mystic class that I think are most worth to rank for each of their own individual reasons. Now, not everybody is going to be satisfied with all of my picks, obviously, therefore do remember that this is a game at the end of the day, and if you really thoroughly do enjoy using a specific champion, you should, in my opinion, rank it up, primarily because you know that champion better than most people and you will be able to get much better results than an average player would. And that is pretty much the end of it. So do not listen to the naysayers. Remember that this is a game. This is about your enjoyment. And especially if you can, you keep using this champion and get better and better and better at it, then even a mediocre champion can shine in the right hands. That being said, there are, in my opinion, objectively better and worse champions, and that is the best I can do. Take a look at the game through my lens, through my perspective, and explain why I value certain champions for specific game modes, and give my recommendations for rank ups. So let's get going. So first one obviously is going to be Dr. Doom. Dr. Doom is still, without a doubt, in my opinion, the Mystic King. Ultimately, overall, one of the most valuable champions in the game because he does work in pretty much everywhere, wherever you do need to use him. Now, I don't think that he's the best Mystic for every scenario or anything like that, but ultimately his defensive prowess combined with offensive fight control and just ability to nuke down and destroy opponents, versatility, power control, buff control, tankiness, access to shocks and incinerates and fury buffs and immunities and all of that stuff. Doom's just crazy with crazy base stats. Amazing champion to have at rank 4. Ironically, I think the weakest department for Doom is offensively in Battlegrounds. I think defensively he's still a threat, but everywhere else in the game he's basically the quintessential Mystic champion. Moving further is unconventional Mystic champion. Mystic champion that doesn't nullify her base kit. She does have access to neutralize though, and I do think that if you can use Tigra, you should rank her. If you can't use Tigra, you should learn how to use Tigra and then rank her. The thing about Tigra is though that in my opinion you do want to get her awakened at high Sig if you're going to take her to rank 3 or 4, because otherwise she's just going to be a completely different champion and significantly slower. But granted that you have her at high Sig, it is well worth learning, well worth investing, and well worth using this champion. One of the highest damage output in the game for a specific fight length. For short to medium fights, there are very few champions that can take down fights as quickly as she can. Her damage output basically rivals CGR for right matchups in Battlegrounds, for instance, or in Alliance Wars, so on and so forth. And yeah, she is, however, a champion that's tricky to play. You need to learn each and every single individual matchup pretty much, and you need to be well aware of what to do when and quite confident. I myself, I'm mediocre Tiger player best, but even I absolutely love using this champion because when things go right, oh my god, they are glorious. But there you go. Tigra. Then again, if you know how to use Tigra, probably I don't have to tell you that she's well worth rank 4. Let's talk about low skill Tigra in a sense. We have Rintra. Rintra has been just exploding on the scenes thanks to his tankiness, thanks to his offensive utility and everything else. He's the second neutralized Rapture champion, and he's much easier to play. Now, in case of Rintra, I think he's worth a rank 3, even unduped. Rank 4, I mean, obviously, ideally, you do want to get the guy duped and up out to 660, 680 or so. And yeah, he is basically very new, but already making a massive impact in Battlegrounds on offense and defense, in questing, in Alliance Wars, on offense and defense, and pretty much everywhere, as one of the biggest health pools in the game, and combined with his extra damage mitigations for while he's rooted and regeneration effects and everything else, the dude can live, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, here you go. On top of it, he also has energy resistances, and whenever he gets armor broken, then he does some cool stuff and increases his damage output, and there's just so much to him, and it's kind of fun to root yourself and go ham on the opponent as well. So, in my opinion, Rintra in the next Mystic tier list is going to be one of the highest positions, but we'll see exactly where he lands. Black Widow Clairvoyant is still very much a worthwhile rank up. She's one of the most versatile champions in the entire game. she relies on Mystic Dispersion as much as she can rely on opponents having immunities in order to gain a ton of extra power, and then in the right phase, her level 2 can even exaggerate that to the next level where you can power steal from the opponent, or you can heal, or you can do more damage. You can pick your immunities, you can pick your damage over time effects, you can pick how you nullify opponents' buffs with buff immunity from level 2 or with nullify on your basic attacks. There's just so much to this champion, and I absolutely love her. I think she's amazing, amazing character. Moving on, we have Diablo. Diablo is definitely also one of the better mystics in the game right now, and he doesn't, just like Black Widow, Clairvoyant, and Tigra, Diablo doesn't have much of defensive value, but offensively he's just a monster, a menace, a threat to be reckoned with customizable utility as well through his pre-fight abilities, where you can basically choose to go immune to stun effects and armor breaks, choose to have very potent nullification abilities, or choose to passively regenerate energy damage. And then on top of it, obviously, you do have unblockable level 2 bursts, massive poison effects, level 3 nuke to at your disposal, and massive regeneration effect, plus also base almost a poison immunity. So Diablo is a very worthwhile consideration for rank 4 in my opinion, and a dangerous champion in pretty much every piece of content, be that Alliance Quest, be it Alliance War, be it questing, be it Battlegrounds. Moving on, Ebony Maw, and now the picks are going to start becoming slightly more interesting. I think Ebony Maw is shining more and more. I do think that he is being awakened offensively, as in, like, more and more people realize how good this champion can be offensively with proper timing, utilizing his falter mechanic, combating champions with guaranteed crits, easy access power control on your heavy attacks, passive degeneration effects, so on and so forth. And also defensively, obviously, Ebony's most biggest weakness compared to other defensive Mystic champions is the fact that he's kind of squishy, which is something that having Ebony Maw at rank 4 helps a ton. And then obviously he's, again, as I said, underrated offensively, not just for cheesing guaranteed crit champions, even though it's always fun to see place Ebony Maw in Battlegrounds, an opponent picks a hit monkey to attack him or something, or Shang-Chi. But that put aside, definitely, in my opinion, I would not be surprised at all when I see rank 4 Ebony Maws, and it is a very scary rank up, very dangerous one. Next up, we have Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch Sigil is not everybody's taste. However, again, she's a champion that is quite risky. Initially, I perhaps overestimated her a slight bit, but still, she does have extremely unique ability to nullify on her parries without actually having to strike the opponent or access a special attack, and that is extremely powerful in many different situations where most of the Mystic champions perhaps couldn't work. On top of it, she has insane amount of damage, massive level 3. There is quite a lot of controlled chaos happening in the fights, and whenever you use Scarlet Witch Sigil, things can go south quite quickly, but that is not going to be your standard kind of experience. So whilst I would personally be afraid to use Scarlet Witch Sigil offensively in Alliance War, let's say, but Battlegrounds, where it is not end of the, end of the world if something does go wrong slightly occasionally, she is again beginning to shine much more. On top of it, throughout 8.1, I reminded myself how amazing this champion can be offensively. So definitely have seen several Black Widow Scarlet Witches rank 4 already. Now, a champion that, again, next couple of champions, not Hood, we're going to leave that by the end, but Mephisto, Man-Thing, and Sasquatch are all three kind of packed in one. They are all three mutant, mystic defensive powerhouses. Now, all three of them can have an offensive use and have used every single one of these champions offensively as well when occasion calls for it. But primarily they're defenders, and they are Alliance War and Battlegrounds defensive rank-ups. If you do not care about Battlegrounds defense, about Alliance War defense, these rank-ups are not for you. There are far better offensive options. But if you do care about Battlegrounds defense, then I think Mephisto is arguably the best Mystic defender to rank up if you are running Liquid Courage Double Edge, because he doesn't necessarily need even Mystic Dispersion to be super dangerous because of his Incinerate aura, and He's also regeneration at the end and immunities, even with Liquid Courage Double Edge and so on and so forth. He's very dangerous. He has been putting in a ton of work for me on defense when he's not getting banned, that is, because he's one of my most banned champions at the moment as well. Similarly to Man-Thing, Man-Thing is also extremely powerful defender who pretty much requires opponent to have either champion that can't gain buffs or a poison immune champion or a champion that can shrug off the debuffs. But that basically means that A, you need a specific counter to this guy, and B, his massive health pool and reduction in the crit damage, which a lot of people always forget. Made of Mush, Man-Thing's made of Swamp Mush and lacks any meaningful weak points to exploit. That makes it immune to armor break or shatter effects and prevents critical hits from dealing bonus damage. Which means you can crit, but critting against Man-Thing is kind of pointless. So ultimately, he can stall for time for days, so it's a very good defensive rank up for Alliance War and Battlegrounds. And similarly to Sasquatch, with his damage mitigation mechanic in his rage charges, and having one of the biggest health pools in the game, he's just very, very hard to kill. So all three of them are basically worthwhile rank ups, in my opinion, if you care about Battlegrounds and war defense. Nowhere near as valuable as Tigra, as Doom, as Rintra, who kind of has the best of both worlds. Still worth shouting out. And then we have Hood. Hood, I think, is grossly underestimated at the moment. And one of the coolest things about Hood is that he can take champions that do not rely on buffs, that he can take champions that most Mystic champions couldn't do. He can take champions that have adverse effects for having debuffs placed on them, because most of that is passive damage from detonation where it comes. Invisibility plus power steal, if he's awakened, can help you gain a very significant speed in the fight, and then you just nuke everything down with your heavy hex detonation. One of the problems about Hood is his bullet mechanic, where if you use him in matchups where opponents do not have many buffs, you're going to run out of bullets within a couple of fights, depending how long fights are. But again, in stuff like Alliance War, in stuff like Battlegrounds, that doesn't matter, because like Battlegrounds is a single fight anyways. In Alliance War, typically you take like 2 or 3 fights with a single champion, and you wouldn't bring Hood for a fight where, you know, none of his abilities would regenerate the bullets anyways. So he kind of bypasses that weakness. And yeah, I have seen people do some crazy stuff with Hood, and he kind of is similar to Longshot in my opinion, except I think Hood is maybe slightly slower, but more versatile. And I go for that. So I do recommend Hood over Longshot, I think, at this point. That being said, as I mentioned, there are more Mystic champions that I can completely understand why people rank up, like Longshot, like Wong, like Wiccan, like Mojo, like Mordo, like Mangog, so on and so forth. Mystic is a jacked class at this point. Again, Dragon Man, Dormammu even. But, again, the top Mystic rank ups, in my opinion, are quite obviously Doctor Doom, Tigra, Black Widow, Clairvoyant, Rintra, Diablo. I think that would be the top 5. Everything else afterwards has a good reason to be ranked up, has a place in the game, but is going to be taking a step back. Doom, Tigra, Rintra, Black Widow, Clairvoyant, Diablo. I think that is the current Mystic top 5 in the game across virtually all the game modes. So let me know what you guys think, and I will catch you guys later. See ya. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about